Sterling Vance had not been in a broken elevator since 1987. He was 9 years old. He remembered the heat, the way the metal walls seemed to shrink inward with every passing minute. The way his mother's hand had gripped his shoulder so tightly that the nails left crescent marks through his school blazer. She had not panicked. She had not cried. She had stood perfectly still in the corner of the service elevator of the Meridian Plaza and counted down from 60 in a voice so steady it had fooled everyone except Sterling, who could feel her pulse racing through her palm. They had been trapped for 47 minutes. When the doors finally opened, his mother had walked out, straightened her skirt, and never mentioned it again. Not once. Not in the car on the way home, not at dinner, not in the years that followed. She simply closed that door in her mind and never opened it again. Sterling had learned from her. He learned that the way to survive something was to pretend it had never happened. He learned that the way to be strong was to never let anyone see you weak. He learned that the way to win was to never admit you were scared. He had spent the next 40 years ensuring he would never be trapped anywhere again. He took private elevators. He had backup generators installed in every building he owned. He kept a satellite phone in his inner jacket pocket at all times. He had a team of engineers who inspected every lift he used within 24 hours of his arrival. He had a pilot who kept the private jet fueled and ready at all times. He had a driver who knew every alternate route out of every city he visited. All of that preparation, all of that money, and yet here he was, on a Tuesday afternoon in November, standing in a service elevator at the corner of Canal and Hudson, watching the illuminated number on the display panel stall between the 4th and 5th floors. The car shuddered once. A metallic groan echoed from somewhere above, then silence, the kind of silence that presses in on your ears and makes you aware of your own heartbeat. Sterling exhaled slowly through his nose. He pressed the emergency call button. Nothing. He pressed it again, harder this time. Still nothing. He pressed the intercom button. No response. He pressed the alarm bell, a faint, pathetic buzz that faded almost instantly. He reached for his satellite phone, but the device was in his coat pocket, and his coat was in the penthouse suite on the 28th floor, draped over a leather chair where he had left it, because he had only been going down 2 floors to meet a client in the conference room. He had been in a hurry. He had been impatient. He had thought, "It's just 2 floors. I'll be back in 10 minutes." He was wearing a $3,000 suit, hand-stitched shoes, and a watch that could have paid for a small car. He had no phone, no water, and no patience. He was trapped. The elevator was a service lift, designed for staff, with scuffed metal walls and a rubber floor that smelled faintly of bleach. He had taken it instead of the main passenger elevator because the main elevator was undergoing its quarterly maintenance, and he had refused to wait an extra 4 minutes for the other car to return from the lobby. 4 minutes. That was the margin of error that had landed him here. 4 minutes of impatience that had turned into 40 minutes of confinement. He looked at the ceiling, then at the closed doors, then at the small maintenance panel that was bolted shut. He considered kicking it, then reconsidered. He was a man who solved problems with leverage, not force. Force was for people who had run out of options. He had not run out of options. He was simply temporarily inconvenienced. He waited. 3 minutes passed. 5, 7. The air in the car grew still and warm. The ventilation system had stopped entirely, and the heat from the building's core was rising through the shaft. Sterling removed his jacket, folded it with precise movements, and placed it on the metal handrail. His shirt was pale blue, custom-made, with his initials monogrammed in thread so fine it was barely visible. He rolled up his sleeves with the practiced economy of a man he had never done manual labor, but could approximate the gesture convincingly. He pressed his ear to the door. He could hear the faint hum of the building, the distant murmur of traffic on Canal Street, the occasional footstep in the hallway beyond. He knocked on the metal. 3 sharp raps. "Hello?" His voice was calm, authoritative, the voice of a man who expected problems to resolve themselves when he addressed them directly. "I'm trapped in here. I need you to call building maintenance." The footsteps stopped. A pause. Then a woman's voice, low and unhurried, came through the gap between the doors. "I know you are." Sterling blinked. The response was not what he had expected. He had expected apologies, assurances, the hurried scrambling of a subordinate eager to rectify an inconvenience for a man of his stature. He had expected a voice trembling with anxiety, a voice that would say, "Yes, sir, right away, sir." He had expected deference. Instead, he got flatness. "Excuse me?" "I said I know you are. The building is aware. They're sending a technician." "How long?" The woman did not answer immediately. Sterling pressed his ear to the door, listening. He could hear the faint rustle of fabric, the click of a keycard, the distant hum of a ventilation fan. She was not rushing. She was not apologizing. She was simply there, waiting, as if she had all the time in the world. 20 minutes, maybe 30. Sterling closed his eyes. He counted to 5. He counted to 10. He opened his eyes again. "Who are you?" he asked. "I'm the janitor." The word landed in the small space of the elevator car like a pebble dropped into a still pond. It was not the response he had wanted. He had wanted a manager, a supervisor, someone with authority. He had wanted a person who could fix the problem, someone who could make a phone call, someone who could open the doors. Instead, he had a janitor. "Can you open the doors?" he asked. "No, why not?" "Because they're locked. The emergency release is on the roof of the car. I don't have a ladder." Sterling pressed his palm flat against the metal door. The heat of the surface surprised him. The car was warming up, and the ventilation had stopped entirely. He could feel the warmth seeping through the metal, the building's core temperature rising around him. "What's your name?" he asked. "Elena what?" "Just Elena." He hated that answer. He hated the casualness of it, the absence of deference. He was a man accustomed to full names, titles, the professional courtesy of a formal introduction. He had built a company worth $12 billion on the strength of his reputation, and he had never once in his career introduced himself as just Sterling. "Elena," he repeated, "I need you to do something for me." "I'm listening." "I need you to call my office. My assistant's name is Margaret. Tell her I'm stuck in the service elevator and that I need her to reschedule the 2 o'clock with Grayson Holdings." "I don't have your office number. There's a phone in the lobby." "I don't have the lobby phone." "Then go get it." Another pause, longer this time. Sterling could feel her weighing something on the other side of the door. He could not see her face, but he could sense the calculation happening behind her silence. "I'm not the building concierge," she said finally. "I'm the janitor. I clean floors. I empty trash. I'm not authorized to make calls from the front desk." Sterling Vance had been in boardrooms where billion-dollar deals were decided in minutes. He had negotiated with senators, CEOs, the heads of foreign states. He had never once been outmaneuvered by a janitor. And yet, here he was, in a metal box, talking to a woman who was refusing to do his bidding with a level of quiet stubbornness that was beginning to irritate him. "Listen," he said, and his voice carried a sharp edge now, the edge he used when junior associates failed to deliver. "I am Sterling Vance. I own this building. I own the company that owns this building. I have a meeting in 45 minutes that is worth more than you will make in your entire lifetime. And if I miss it because you refuse to make a simple phone call, I will ensure that you are not working in any building I own ever again. Do you understand?" Silence. Then, very softly, through the gap in the doors, Elena said, "I understand." Sterling waited for the apology. It did not come. "I'm still going to stay here," she added. Sterling Vance did not shout. He had never shouted in a professional context. He found shouting to be a sign of diminished capacity, the last refuge of a man who had lost control. He had seen other men shout, and he had watched them lose deals, lose credibility, lose the quiet authority that actually made people afraid of them. But standing in that elevator, in this heat, with the silence pressing in on all sides, he came closer to shouting than he had in decades. "Why?" he asked, and the word came out harder than he had intended. "Because I work here," Elena said. "The maintenance team is on its way. I've already told them, but they're coming from a site in Brooklyn, and traffic is bad, so I'm staying until they get here." "You're staying to watch me?" "I'm staying because someone has to be here when the doors open. You might need help. You might be hurt. You might be scared. Sterling almost laughed. I'm not scared. I didn't say you were. The elevator felt quiet again. The hum of the ventilation had ceased entirely. The only sound was the soft buzz of the emergency light overhead, which cast a pale orange glow across the metal walls. Sterling sat down. He lowered himself to the floor of the elevator car, his expensive suit brushing against the rubber mat, and leaned his back against the wall. He had not sat on a floor in years. He had not had a reason to. Floors were for children and workers and people who had not yet understood that surfaces existed to be looked down upon. The heat was getting to him. His shirt was sticking to his back, and the absence of air was making his thoughts come slower than usual. He could feel the sweat gathering at his temples, the slight tremor in his hands that came from adrenaline and frustration. "Tell me something," he said, more to break the silence than anything else. "Like what?" "Tell me why you became a janitor." The question was not genuine. He did not care. He was asking to keep her talking, to anchor himself to something outside the metal walls. But she answered as if the question mattered. "I started cleaning offices when I was 19. My mother cleaned offices. Her mother cleaned houses. It's not a story, it's just what was available. That's it. That's the whole thing. I needed money. I needed a job that didn't require a degree. I needed something that let me take my daughter to school in the morning and pick her up in the afternoon. It's not a tragedy, it's a schedule." Sterling heard the words. He heard the simplicity of them, the absence of self-pity. She was not asking for sympathy. She was stating facts the way a person states facts about the weather or the price of milk. There was no bitterness in her voice, no resentment, just the flat acceptance of a life lived within limits. "How old is your daughter?" "9. Her name is Marisol. She's in the 4th grade." Sterling had a daughter. Her name was Charlotte. She was 27 years old and she lived in London, and she had not spoken to him in 3 years. He had not thought about her in weeks, not consciously, not in the way that required him to sit with the weight of that silence. But sitting in that elevator, with the heat pressing in, he thought about her. He thought about the last time he had seen her. It had been at a restaurant in Mayfair, a place with white tablecloths, and a wine list longer than his attention span. She had been polite, she had been distant, she had asked him about his health, his business, his plans for the summer. She had asked him nothing about his life, his regrets, his loneliness. She had not asked because she did not want to know. He had tried to tell her about his mother once. He had tried to explain why he was the way he was, why he had been so absent, why he had chosen work over family, over and over again. She had listened, she had nodded, and then she had said, "I'm not your therapist, Dad. I'm your daughter, and you don't get to explain your way out of not being there." He had not spoken to her since. "Does she know what you do?" he asked Elena. "Of course she knows. She sees me leave in the morning. She sees me come back at night. She knows I clean buildings." Does she ever seem ashamed of that?" Elena did not answer immediately. When she did, her voice had changed. It was no longer flat and unhurried. There was a thread of something sharper underneath it. "She asked me once if I was embarrassed. She was 6. She'd heard one of the other kids at school say something about her mother being a cleaner. I told her that I was not embarrassed. I told her that I get paid to make things clean, that I show up on time, that I do my job well, and that there is no shame in doing a job well, no matter what the job is." Sterling said nothing. "She looked at me for a long time," Elena continued, and then she said, "Okay, Mama, that sounds good." And she went back to her coloring book. She didn't ask again. I don't know if she understood, but she never looked at me differently. That's all I care about. That's the only thing that matters to me. Do you think she still feels that way, now that she's older? I don't know. I hope so. But I can't control that. I can only control what I do. And what I do is show up, every day, for her. The elevator hummed. A distant thump echoed from above, but the doors did not open. "Your daughter," Sterling said slowly. "Did she ever ask about your mother?" "No. Why not?" "Because my mother died when I was 19. I never got to ask her anything after that. So I don't have answers to give my daughter about her grandmother." The words sat between them. Sterling felt something shift in the space behind his ribs. It was not guilt. He did not feel guilt. He had long ago explained to himself that the world was divided into winners and losers, and that his success was not a reflection of his choices, but of his capacity. He had not built an empire by feeling bad for people who had failed to do the same. But he had a mother once. She had a grip. She had a voice. She had a way of counting down from 60 that made him feel safe, even when he knew she was terrified. "Where did you grow up?" he asked. "Here, Houston. That's where I'm from. I grew up in the East End. My mother worked at a dry cleaner on Alameda Road. She died when I was 19. And your father? He left when I was 4. So you were raised by a single mother who worked 2 jobs, more or less. And you started working at 19 because you had to." "I started working at 19 because I wanted to eat." Sterling leaned his head back against the metal wall. He was looking at the ceiling of the elevator, but he was not seeing it. He was seeing something else, something older, a memory he had buried so deep it had become part of the foundation of his life. "I never really knew my father either," he said. He did not know why he said it. He had never told anyone that. Not his wives, not his partners, not the therapist he had seen for 6 sessions before deciding it was a waste of time. The words came out unprompted, like water finding a crack in a dam. "My mother raised me alone. She worked as a secretary. She never made more than $30,000 a year. She died when I was 26, and I had just started my first company, and I was trying to get the funding together, and I didn't have time to visit her in the hospital because I had a pitch meeting, and I told myself I'd see her after, and she died before the meeting was over." The silence in the elevator was absolute. "I never told anyone that." "Neither have I," Elena said. "About my mother, I mean. I tell people I'm fine, but I've never told anyone the details. Not like that." "What else do you tell people?" "I tell people I clean buildings. I tell people I have a daughter. I tell people I'm fine. That's usually enough." "I used to tell people I was fine too. I still do. It's easier." "Easier than what?" "Easier than explaining that the building I built was to prove something to someone who wasn't there to see it." The word came out and hung in the air between them. It was the most honest thing Sterling had said in years. He sat with it. He felt its weight, and he was surprised to discover that it did not crush him. "Was she proud?" Elena asked. "I don't know. I never asked. I never let myself ask." "Then ask yourself now." Sterling closed his eyes. He thought about his mother. He thought about the last time he had seen her, sitting in a hospital bed with tubes in her arms, smiling at him with a smile that had always been too generous for the life she had lived. He thought about how he had kissed her forehead and said he would be back in 2 hours, and how he had never come back. He had been 26 years old. He had been building a company. He had been so consumed by the need to succeed that he had convinced himself that success was the only thing that mattered. And then she had died, and he had stood in the hospital hallway with a plastic cup of coffee and a phone that kept buzzing with messages he could not bring himself to answer. And he had realized that the one person he had been trying to impress was gone. He had never cried, not then, not since. He had locked that grief away in a vault so deep he had forgotten the combination. But sitting in that elevator, with his back against the metal and his shirt soaked through, the vault was cracking. "What do I say to a dead woman?" he asked. "Same thing you say to a living one," Elena said. "You say I'm sorry, you say I loved you, and you say, I wish I had been there." Sterling opened his eyes. He looked at the metal door. He had never said those words to anyone. Not his mother, not his daughter, not himself. "Are you sorry?" Elena asked. Yes, the word came out raw and untested, like a note played for the first time. "I am sorry. I'm sorry I wasn't there. I'm sorry I didn't visit. I'm sorry I told myself I had more time when I knew I didn't." His voice broke. It was a small break, a single fissure in the surface of his composure, but it was there. He felt it. He did not try to cover it. "The woman on the other side of this door just made me apologize to my dead mother. I can't make you do anything. You chose to do it." "I did." "Then it's not a loss. It's a discovery." He was about to respond when the elevator shuddered. The lights flickered. A sound came from above, metal grinding against metal, and the car dropped 6 inches before stopping hard. Sterling's heart lurched. He pressed his palm against the wall, steadying himself. The emergency light flickered again, dimming for a moment before returning to its weak orange glow. "Elena, I'm here." The car dropped. I felt it. "Get help. It's already on the way. I've been telling you that." "The technician is still coming from Brooklyn?" "He is." "How long?" 10 minutes, maybe 15. The heat was worse now. The emergency light was pulsing dimmer than before. Sterling's shirt was soaked through, and the air in the car was thin and hot like the air from an oven left open too long. "What else did she want?" he asked. "Who?" "Your mother." Elena did not answer right away. When she did, her voice was quieter than before. "She wanted to see me graduate. She never did. I dropped out of high school to take care of her. When she died, I went back and got my GED. I didn't do it for me. I did it because she would have wanted me to. And after that, I worked a lot of jobs. Laundry, fast food, office cleaning. The one I'm doing now is the best I've had. Consistent hours, benefits, a schedule that lets me see my kid. Do you want to do something else?" The question seemed to surprise her. She was quiet for a moment. "I don't know. I thought about it once, a long time ago." "What did you think about?" "I thought about teaching, elementary school maybe. I used to help the younger kids with their reading at the community center. There was this boy who couldn't pronounce his R's. He couldn't get anyone to understand him, but he could draw. He drew these pictures of dragons, these huge elaborate dragons, and I'd ask him to tell me about them, and he'd forget that he was stuttering because he was too excited. I helped him for 6 months. By the end, he could read out loud without getting stuck. What happened to him? He moved away. His family relocated. I don't know where he is now, but I think about him sometimes. I think about how he drew dragons, and dragons are supposed to be scary, but his were friendly. They had round faces, and they were always smiling. I think about that boy who couldn't speak, but could create a world where everyone was welcome." "Did you ever go back to school for teaching?" "No, I had a daughter. I needed a job that paid now, not a job that paid later. It's not a tragedy, it's just the way it worked out." "You never regretted it?" "I regret that I couldn't do both, but I don't regret my daughter, and I don't regret the choices I made to take care of her. Regret is expensive. It uses up time you don't have. I learned that pretty early on." Sterling was quiet for a moment. He was thinking about his own choices, the ones he had made in the name of ambition, the ones he had justified as necessary, the ones he had used to build a fortress around himself. "I had a daughter," he said. "Charlotte. She's 27. She lives in London. She hasn't spoken to me in 3 years. Why? Because I wasn't there. I was always working, always building, always trying to prove something to someone who was already dead. And I didn't realize what I was losing until it was too late." "Have you tried to reach out?" "I don't know how. Have you tried?" He was silent. "It's a yes or no question, Mr. Vance." "No, I haven't tried. I don't know what to say." "Start with the same thing you said to your mother. I'm sorry. I loved you. I wish I had been there." "She won't believe me." "She might not, but you have to say it anyway. Not because she'll believe you, and because the only way to fix something is to start by admitting it's broken." The elevator creaked again. The metal walls groaned, and the car swayed slightly from side to side. "The technician is 10 minutes away," Elena said. "I just got a text. 10 minutes. I heard you. I'm telling you because I want you to stop looking at the ceiling and start looking at the floor." "What?" "Because the floor is where you're standing. The ceiling is where you're trying to go. But you can't get to the ceiling if you don't acknowledge the floor." That's what my mother used to say. She never got to go to college, never got to have a nice house, never got anything she wanted for herself. But she always stood on the floor. She always looked at what was in front of her. And she made sure I knew that the only thing that ever matters is what you do with the feet you're standing on. Sterling looked down at the rubber floor of the elevator. It was scuffed and worn, marked by years of feet in carts and dirty boots. It was not beautiful. It was not glamorous, but it was solid. It was holding him. "Your mother was a janitor too," he said. "She was, for 30 years. Different buildings, but the same job, the same pay, the same invisible presence in the corners of rooms that people wanted to forget existed." "Did she ever meet anyone like me? Anyone like you? Rich, powerful, someone who treated her like furniture?" Elena laughed. It was a short laugh, not bitter, but knowing. It was the laugh of someone who had seen too much to be surprised by anything. "She met plenty of people like you. They all thought they were the center of the world. They all looked right through her. They all were wrong." The lights flickered again. The emergency light went out completely for a moment, leaving the car in total darkness. Sterling's breath caught in his chest. He had not been in total darkness in decades. He had forgotten what it felt like to not see anything, to not know where the walls were, to feel the walls closing in. He had been in a dark elevator before. He had been 9 years old. He had been with his mother, and she had counted down from 60 to keep him calm. Elena, I can't see. I know. The lights are out. I know. Are you going to do something about it? I'm right here, Mr. Vance. That's the something. He exhaled. The darkness was absolute, but her voice was steady. She was not panicking. She was not leaving. She was just there, on the other side of the door, waiting. Do you know why I hate elevators? He asked. Why? Because my mother and I were trapped in one when I was 9. We were in it for 47 minutes. She never panicked. She never raised her voice. She just stood there and held my shoulder and counted from 60 down to 1. When we got out, she walked out of that building like nothing had happened. She was embarrassed. She didn't want anyone to see that her son was scared, so she pretended she wasn't. But she was. Yes, she was. I could feel her hands shaking on my shoulder, but she didn't let me see it. She hid it from me because she wanted me to think I was safe, and I believed her. For years, I believed her. I thought she wasn't scared because she had it all figured out, but she was just as scared as I was. She just had better practice. Then why are you telling me this? Because I want someone to know. I've been carrying that elevator around for 40 years. I've been pretending it didn't happen, but it did, and I'm tired of pretending. The darkness settled around them like a second skin. Sterling could feel the weight of the words leaving him. They were gone, spoken, released. He felt lighter, as if he had been carrying something heavy for so long that he had forgotten what it felt like to put it down. Thank you, Elena said. For what? For telling me. Most people don't tell anyone anything that matters. They talk about the weather, the news, the price of gas. They fill the air with so much noise they can't hear themselves think. I used to be like that. I used to fill the air. It was my job. It's still your job. You're still talking. But at least now you're saying something real. The elevator jerked. The light flickered on again, dim and orange, but stable. Somewhere above, a motor hummed. The sound of machinery coming to life was almost musical to Sterling's ears. 5 minutes, Elena said. The technician is in the building. Sterling sat in the corner of the car. His hair was plastered to his forehead. His shirt was ruined. He had never looked worse. He had never felt more exposed. Elena, he said. Yes. Will you wait until the door opens? I'm not going anywhere. The minutes passed. Sterling counted them. He counted 60 seconds, then another, then another. He had not counted seconds since he was 9 years old. He had not needed to. He had spent his entire adult life avoiding situations where counting seconds was necessary. And then with a grind and a hiss, the elevator doors slid open. The light from the hallway flooded in. It was harsh and fluorescent and perfect. Elena was standing in the doorway, a small woman in a dark blue jumpsuit with a cleaning cart behind her. She was wearing a lanyard with a badge that read, Elena Vasquez, Custodial Services. Her hair was pulled back. Her eyes were brown and steady. She looked at him. He looked at her. He was a billionaire. He was sitting on the floor of a service elevator with sweat on his forehead and dust on his trousers. She was a janitor. She was standing in the hallway with a cart of cleaning supplies and the calm expression of a woman who had just spent 45 minutes talking a stranger down from a ledge he hadn't known he was standing on. Sterling Vance stood up. He brushed off his trousers. He walked through the doorway into the hallway and stood beside her. Thank you, he said. You're welcome. Where is the technician? He's on the 3rd floor. The elevator is stuck again. Another one. Different car. I thought this one was fixed. It is fixed. I told him to check the other one too. Why? Because if one elevator goes down, the others are likely to follow. That's just physics. He looked at her for a long time. She met his gaze without flinching. She was not intimidated by him. She was not impressed by him. She was simply there, present, solid. I owe you something, he said. You don't owe me anything. I owe you a conversation. You don't owe me that either. Then let's just say I'm giving it to you anyway. He reached into his pocket. He pulled out a business card. It was cream-colored with his name and his private line. Call me if you ever need anything, he said. She took the card. She looked at it. She did not put it in her pocket. Thank you, she said. He nodded. He walked down the hallway toward the main elevator. He did not look back, but he felt the weight of her eyes on his shoulders. Sterling Vance missed his meeting. He did not apologize to the client. He did not explain. He simply canceled and rescheduled. The client was annoyed. Sterling did not care. He went back to his penthouse and sat in the chair where his coat had been. He picked up his satellite phone. He looked at it for a long time. Then he made a call. "Charlotte," he said, when the voicemail picked up. "It's Dad. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I wasn't there. I'm sorry I didn't call. I'm sorry I told myself I had more time when I knew I didn't. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I needed to say it. I love you. I wish I had been there. I wish I'd been there for all of it." He hung up. He sat in the chair for a long time. He did not cry, but something inside him shifted. Something that had been locked away for so long he had forgotten it was there. 6 months later, Sterling Vance sat in a small auditorium at the University of Houston. The seats were folding chairs. The stage was a wooden platform with a portable microphone. There were no chandeliers, no champagne, no string quartet. He was wearing a plain blue shirt. No jacket, no cufflinks, no watch. He was there to watch Elena Vasquez graduate. Marisol Vasquez was sitting in the front row. She was 9 years old and she was wearing a dress that was slightly too big for her, because her mother had bought it at a thrift store and she was saving it for a special occasion. She sat with her hands folded in her lap and her feet crossed at the ankles, the perfect posture of a child who had been practicing for this moment for months. When the announcer called Elena's name, Marisol stood up and clapped with both hands above her head. Sterling Vance watched Elena walk across the stage. She was wearing a blue gown and a cap with a tassel. Her hair was pulled back. She was smiling in a way he had never seen her smile, a smile that was not for the room or the audience or the photographer, a smile that was entirely for the little girl in the front row. Elena took the certificate with both hands. She paused at the center of the stage and looked out at the audience. She found Marisol, she found Sterling, and she nodded. Sterling nodded back. He had made a phone call after that day in the elevator. He had called the dean of the College of Education at the University of Houston. He had asked whether there were scholarships for single mothers returning to education. He had funded 2 of them. He had not told Elena. He had not wanted her to feel obligated. She had been accepted before his call, admitted on merit, accepted on her own academic record. The funding was simply a way of removing the obstacle that had kept her out of a classroom for 9 years. She had not asked him for help. She had never asked him for anything. That was what had made him give it. Sterling Vance walked to the back of the auditorium after the ceremony. He waited until the crowd dispersed. He waited until the graduates had taken their photos and the families had hugged and the caps had been thrown. He waited until Elena was standing alone with her daughter near the exit, holding her certificate in her hands like a secret she had been keeping for too long. "Elena," he said. She turned. She saw him. She did not look surprised. "Mr. Vance, you graduated." "I did." "Elena, yes? Would you like a job?" "I need a classroom." "Elementary school, I have a school. I built it. It's in the East End. It's for children who need extra help learning to read. I had the building built 3 weeks after I met you." She looked at him. She was quiet for a long time. "That's not a coincidence," she said. "No, it wasn't. I made it happen on purpose." "Because of what I told you?" "Yes, that boy, the one with the dragons. I want you to have a classroom full of those boys. That's why I built it." She tucked the certificate under her arm. She looked at him the way she had looked at him in the elevator, steady, unhurried, weighing. "Mr. Vance," she said, "I don't want charity." "It's not charity. It's a position that happens to pay a salary. The salary is competitive. The benefits are good. The hours allow you to be home by 3:30. She was quiet. "Who is going to teach the children?" she asked. "I was hoping you would." "Mr. Vance, I don't even have my full certification yet. I have a bachelor's degree. I need another year for my credential." "Then you can teach as a teaching assistant for a year, and when you get your credential, you can teach full-time. I'll cover the gap." "You'll cover the gap?" "I will." "What's the catch?" He met her eyes. "The catch is that you have to bring a dragon drawing to your first day of class." and you have to promise me that you'll never let a boy who draws dragons think he isn't worth teaching." Elena Vasquez looked at her daughter. Marisol was looking up at Sterling with the open curiosity of a child who had been told that strangers could be kind. "Mom," Marisol said, "do we get to see the dragons?" Elena looked back at Sterling. "Yes," she said, "I think we do." He handed her a card. A different card this time. It had the address of the school. It had the hours. It had his name simply, without a title. Sterling Vance walked out of the auditorium into the Houston sun. He had not felt light in 40 years. He felt light now. Sterling Vance visited his mother's grave the following week. He had not visited in years. He had told himself he was too busy. He had told himself it didn't matter. He had told himself that she was gone and that visiting a piece of stone would not bring her back. But he went. He stood at the grave in the small cemetery on the outskirts of Houston. The headstone was modest, the kind of stone a secretary could afford. It read, "Margaret Vance, beloved mother." He knelt down. He placed his hand on the grass. "I'm sorry, Mom," he said. "I'm sorry I wasn't there. I'm sorry I didn't visit. I'm sorry I told myself I had more time when I knew I didn't. I love you. I wish I had been there." He stayed for a long time. The sun moved across the sky. The grass grew cool beneath his knees. He thought about his mother. He thought about the elevator. He thought about the little boy who drew dragons that smiled. And for the first time in his life, he did not think about the ceiling. He thought about the floor. The floor was where he was standing, and it was solid, and that was enough. That night, Sterling Vance sat in his penthouse. His phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "It's Elena. I start on Monday. Marisol wants to know if you'll come to the school to see the dragon drawings. I told her you might. E." Sterling smiled. It was a real smile, the kind that reached his eyes. He had not smiled like that in years. He typed back, "I'll be there, S." He put the phone down. He looked out the window at the city below. The lights were on. The buildings were full of people. Some of them were trapped. Some of them were free. Some of them were still pretending. He was done pretending. Elena Vasquez walked into the school on a Monday morning in September. The building was new. The paint was fresh. The windows were clean. She walked down the hallway to her classroom. She opened the door. The room was empty, waiting. She set her bag down on the desk. She looked at the bulletin board, the whiteboard, the small chairs arranged in neat rows. She thought about the boy who drew dragons. She thought about her daughter. She thought about the man in the elevator who had listened. She reached into her bag and pulled out a piece of paper. It was a drawing, old and folded, creased at the edges. She unfolded it carefully. It was a dragon, round face, friendly eyes, a smile. She pinned it to the bulletin board. Then she waited for the children to arrive. Sterling Vance came to the school that afternoon. He walked through the doors and down the hallway. He found Elena's classroom. He stood in the doorway and watched. Elena was sitting at a small table with a boy who was drawing. The boy had his tongue sticking out, focused, intent. He was drawing something on a piece of paper. Elena leaned over and said something. The boy looked up and smiled. Sterling did not enter the room. He stood in the doorway and watched, and for the first time in 40 years, he was not trapped. He was free. "I want to ask you something. If you had been that man in the elevator, rich, powerful, accustomed to being in control, would you have listened? Or would you have kept shouting? Would you have stayed on the ceiling? Or would you have looked at the floor?" Drop your answer in the comments. I want to know. If this story made you feel something, hit that like button. Share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Subscribe if you haven't, because more stories like this are coming. One last thing. Remember this. The people who look invisible are often the ones who can see you the clearest. They see you when you're pretending. They see you when you're scared. They see you when you're ready to change. And sometimes the only way out of a trap is to stop trying to escape and start listening to the person on the other side of the door. That's the lesson. Not the elevator, not the billionaire, not the janitor.